sir.
Okay, our our finance meeting, this is the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Sherry Gasparovic, board member.
Jason Jekus, board member.
Tom Snowden, board member.
Cody Reynolds, Winfield Township Trustee.
Becky Dykes, assistant clerk.
Okay, start the meeting. First thing on our agenda is a special action.
One. Guess I grabbed a red pen. Okay, so as you said earlier, sir, tonight's meeting, our special action is consideration and the approval, hopefully the approval of the annual financial report for 2025. As you all know, the annual financial report is also abbreviated as the AFR. This is one of the 4 statutory meetings that the Township Board has to have. What this is a full financial accounting of all actions taken by the Township over the past year. This includes several standalone documents, such as the annual asset report, as well as what is known as the TA7, which is your year-end report on all township assistance that has been rendered, both with township dollars and without. And so I'll explain a little bit more about what that means as we get to it. Okay, so if you turn to the first big document in your folder, this is the copy of the AFR as it currently sits on the gateway. After the board determines its course of action tonight, this will be submitted on the gateway as prescribed by state law for the public to review. And then an abstract of this, a much more condensed version of this, will also then appear in the newspaper, and you all will have the opportunity to review that proof of publication at our next meeting, which is in March. So just know that this is not necessarily the end of the report. This is where you approve it so that you can then show it to public. If you turn the page 2, there's a grand total of what the beginning cash amount was January 1st of 25, and then all the way there on the right is the ending cash balance for all funds on December 31st, 2025. These numbers should look very similar to you. This is what you reviewed really at the annual Board of Finance meeting as well. A lot of that information used in that meeting is put together in advance of the report so that the compilation of the report is much easier. If you turn the page, it shows basic governmental activities. So it shows any refunds or reimbursements, these are all the detailed receipts. So if you look there at the top rainy day, the $15,000 that was transferred in at the end of December, as well as the $250 refund, which occurred regarding one specific transaction earlier in the year. You go down through there and it shows you that for all of the funds. So it shows you all of the receipts into Township General, which was a total of $184,762.81 for the year. The total for fire protection from the rental of the property, fire protection was $10, and then the rental of property, again, all of that generated into the general fund. Refunds and reimbursements, you can see that listed there. So then you can see that total for Township General kind of mid $218,715.23. The total for donations, which is $6,050. The total for Township assistance, which was $18,466.37. I'm sorry, we received some additional funds, so it was actually $19,299.31. The total received into firefighting and EMS was $647,773.23. And then if you turn the page, you've got the total for Hume Fire, which was $149,279.23. Total for Parks and Rec, which was a little over $15,000. It was $15,460.59. The total for Lloyd, which was $55,379, and then the payroll deductions that are listed there. So total receipts was about $1.1 million. Disbursements then by fund, again, this is very similar to the budget balances that you all reviewed at the annual Board of Finance meeting. These are the same transactions, just listed in a different way. So I really won't go through all of those, although if you do have any questions about the expenditures from the overall categories, I'm happy to explain them. But as you know, we used almost all the rainy day fund this year, $14,500. Spent $245,663 out of the Township General Fund. Again, a significant portion of that was the replacement of the roof. From the donation fund, we spent this is the next page, we spent $10,972. From Township Assistance, we spent all $30,000. For firefighting and EMS, we spent $475,378.63. For Kim Fire, we spent $131,250. And then Parks and Recreation, we spent a total of $18,062.39. From Lloyd, we spent a little over $30,500, and then the payroll deductions were another $23,000. Any questions on those disbursements? Okay, the next several pages are all of those totals itemized out. I'm not, unless you do have a question, I'd ask you to review them, but I don't plan to reiterate that. This carries through all the way through page 16. So I'll pause at page 16 so I'll have more time to review and answer any questions. Any questions about the disbursements? All right. So turning from page 16 to page 17, it's another way of looking at the disbursements by funds with departments. We don't actually utilize funds, so that's why you see this pretty much looking the exact same as you did before. Some very large townships do departmentalize. We do not. The next page is just a list of the fund type schedule, so that's just for SBOA accounting purposes. The next page, page 19, is blank, but that's a good thing. This is the debt statement, and as everybody knows from our last meeting, the township does not carry any debt, so therefore it is complete as shown. There are no deficit fund balances either, so again, that's a good sheet to have empty. The next page, which would be page 21, is a list of all of the active leases. So as you can see here, we have two. The first one, the lessor is the township, and that is with town of Winfield. That is for $26,902.68, and that's what we'll get in 2026. The one below it is the $1 a year contract for the Lakes of the Four Seasons Fire Force to rent the upstairs space as well as the fire bay here at this building. So the grand total amount that will be generated for the township through the two leases is $26,903.68. Any questions off of that? Okay. Next page is on transfers. As you can see, there's just the transfer we made from the general fund to the rainy day fund for $15,000. I know we did make those inter-fund transfers within the funds, but those don't have to be accounted here. What's accounted for here when it goes between major funds. Any questions on that? Okay. The next page is the reportable section of the capital asset report for 2025. As you can see here, it lists the total amount of land, the total amount of infrastructure and buildings, and yes, and so this has just been updated with this year's totals. So Does anybody have any questions about it? Those are just what was approved at the capital asset report at our last meeting. Next, accounts payable, receivable. We're at $0 across the board. We don't owe anybody anything and nobody owes us anything. Next page, page 25, is financial assistance to non-governmental entities. This is where we report our contractual payments to the Four Seasons Fire Force as a 501c3 nonprofit. In 2025, we paid them a grand total of $561,509.95. But I believe that is actually just the contractual amount. That's not the additional expenditures that we provided to them. Any questions on that? Okay, the next part is the TA7, and this is something that probably did three things simultaneously. Number one, I'm immensely proud of our team and what we've been able to put together here. Number two, I'm pretty sure it almost made both of the employees quit. And three, we had some very good discussions about this. And I say that for anybody watching online in jest, although Becky did laugh. So, but what this is how the township is required to report to the State Board of Accounts all of the township assistance that has been provided by the township to our residents over the past year. This document does require some explanation because while it is seemingly simple, it is actually not. It is, but it is somewhat misleading. So the first two lines, my name and the phone number here, are what they are. The good way to think about this is lines number 1 through 4. So those first few at the top there, those are the summary lines. Everything below it in this report will roll up and be represented within those lines. So those are your top lines. So if somebody ever asks you, what did the township do for residents this year? This is your easiest response. We had 748 requests for township assistance. Now, what does that mean? That means we had 748 requests, not only for our financial township assistance. So let's say somebody comes in and they need a water bill paid, an electric bill paid, and the rent paid. That counts as 3 requests. Similarly, every time somebody comes in to use the food pantry, resident or not, counts as 1 request. So all told, between all of the number of bills paid and number of times we had visitors to the food pantry, we had 748 of those in the year. Total number of recipients of township assistance. So this is just a 1-to-1 number of people helped. So if we've helped the same person 5 times in the year, they're only counted once. But across everything, financial assistance and food pantry, 751 individuals. That represents 243 households. Total numbers of individuals denied township assistance. Now this number really does just reflect the financial side because we don't really deny people for the food pantry, as you know. But that number was 14. Total value of benefits provided to recipients of township assistance. So this number is our financial assistance. This is the value provided to residents through utility payments, burial payments, rental, those things. Everything but the food pantry, realistically. Becky can correct me on that later because I know that's almost entirely true. But that total value provided was $40,794. Now, on the same token, the total value of benefits denied, because again, we don't deny people food, was $40,066. So really 50-50 here. I mean, I think number one, that shows you that our team does our due diligence. We go through the process. We make sure we get all the documentation. We ask the right questions. And we very much come from an approach of help us get to yes, but we also know that we have a responsibility to the taxpayer and to steward their dollars appropriately. And so I think this is an indication of that. We're not just a freebie. It's not just you show up and we help you. But we also aren't, denying everybody we see. It really is pretty much a 50-50 result, which I think is excellent. Line number 4 will require a little bit of additional explaining. Line number 4 says total value of benefits provided through efforts of township staff from sources other than township funds. Now, what this means is really 2 things. For our purposes, at least for this year, it means 2 things. It might be a little bit different next year. But because we do not require individuals to fill out a township assistance request, the big application to use our food pantry, and because we do not use civil levy funds, so property tax funds to fund our food pantry, we have to account for our food pantry assistance through here. as non-township funds because we're using donated funds, right? And same thing where even if it's not the dollars, we get all those donated food, all that donated food and the resources through the food bank. Same thing, they account for that here. So total value in terms of dollars provided to our community from the food pantry last year was $73,087. So if you really want the actual total amount of assistance provided to our community, it's $40,794 plus $73,087 for 113-ish, $114,000. And that's all off of, to put this into perspective for you, that's all off of about a $51,000 spent. So we're getting the best bang for the buck that we can. We have a great return on investment, return on investment through our food pantry. And then of course on the township assistance, it's dollar for dollar, but still, I just think if anybody ever asks that questions, we do a lot, especially when you consider our budget is still less than $1 million a year. You know, over 1/10 of our budget goes to this. And as you know, the fire department's our biggest budgetary component. So we're putting our money where our mouth is, at least to the extent we can. Of all the township assistance that we received for financial assistance, people who applied for what we used to be called for relief, but the actual township assistance program was 61 recipients from 26 households. And the total value of benefits provided there was $32,194. So what that shows you is the vast majority of help we provided last year through our township assistance program was for utilities. It wasn't housing, it wasn't burials. It was almost entirely for utilities. Next, go down to 7A, where it says total number receiving housing assistance. So again, number of recipients, 18. Number of households helped, 6. Total value of benefits provided for housing assistance was $8,600. Again, this one has a couple other constraints on it. The township assistance guidelines really only let us help up to 60 days for rent or mortgage assistance. So there is somewhat more of a limit there than there is on saying our ability to pay for utility bills. And part of that's simply because where we might be able to afford paying somebody's utility bill 4, 5, 6 times a year, to pay a family's rent 4, 5, 6 times a year will wipe us out. You know, and so some of those things are kind of driven by what's in the assistance guidelines. Next on food, so 9A, total number receiving food recipients, all recipients, 712. Total number receiving food assistance households, 229. Now, I know Tom's like me. He likes to go back and look at these numbers and say, okay, Cody, you said there's 702 individuals who received food assistance and that there's, 61 who received utility assistance, but there's only 748 total recipients. How's something not adding up? No, that top line only counts a person once. But if a person did receive township assistance, financial assistance, and then food pantry help, they're counted in each of the categories down here. It's just in those totals, they're not counted twice. So just know that, because I'm that way too, but know that that's the one area where it counts them each individually. So 712 recipients of food assistance come from 229 households. Again, the total value provided from non-township sources, so again from our food pantry, is $72,932. Now we're going to jump. You're going to see there's a lot of zeros. I want you to go down to line 23A and B, so the page 28. 23A says total number of individuals assisted through special non-traditional programs provided by the township without the expenditure of township funds. That's a really long-winded way of saying when people buy gift cards for us and give it to us, whether they're fuel gift cards. We didn't count food here because we counted the food gift cards in the food category. But we do have folks who will buy fuel gift cards from like Speedway and donate them to us. So we counted them here. So there were 16 individuals who received assistance, basically fuel assistance from us through these gift cards for a total of $155. And then the last one, 24A, is the number of hours spent on case management by Becky and the staff. That number is probably the least developed number on here. I think we just say half an hour per case, right, Becky?
Well, it goes by what's entered in Tom's Web when I record the payments that have gone for utilities. So yeah, it's really not that accurate.
Yeah. Okay. So, having gone through the TA7, as you can see that there is a signature line for me. I hesitated to sign it until I walked through it with the board. But does the board have any questions or anything about specifically the TA7? Knowing that this to be true and that we've in fact talked it quite literally to death before tonight, let us sign this. Thank you again, Becky, for not only putting up with me, but helping to compile all of this. We couldn't have done it without you. Pretty sure some days Barb thought Becky and I were gonna devolve into an actual fist fight, so.
We had heated discussion.
Right, that's what, yep. The next page, page 29, the final page, just goes through the pensions and or other benefits that the township has. The only one we have, of course, as you know, is the public employees. Okay, that completes all the required elements of the annual financial report. I will pause again and ask the board if they have any questions, comments, or feedback about the document as presented.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Why do you?
Everything is okay.
All right, well, that having been said, I will again just say and give a big shout out. We have a great team here. The board and you all, myself, we could not do what we have been able to do without the amazing team we have. And so I'd like to give a lot of credit again to Becky, of course, and to Barbara Graham, our office manager, who's not here with us tonight, as well as to Kelly Hatch and to Denise Pruitt, who manage the community gardens, properties, and community center. Together, you know, you got a brief glimpse, kind of 50,000 foot view of what the township does in a year, and it's a lot. So again, if anybody ever asks that question, well, what does Winfield Township really do? Throw this at them. I think they have to go alone and I tell them to do something. The next item in the packet is the certification. So what this is the board needs to make a decision. Each board member is allowed to certify whether we're approving this or not on the document. I attest at the top that the information included in here is correct to the best of my knowledge and ability, which I so do. And then below it, the board has a couple of options. Option 1, the report was received and accepted and approved by the township board at its annual meeting on this day, and the township board can each approve there. Option 2, this report was received, accepted, and approved except for the following parts by the following township board members in its annual meeting. There is a second page. I didn't bring it because we've never used it before, and I'm hoping we don't need it now, but the third page says Cody didn't do his job and the township board's rejecting it completely. Interestingly enough, even if you did do that, I could still submit it. In fact, the state actually requires me to, but it would obviously be an immediate red flag. And so the State Board of Accounts would probably immediately look into it if something like that were to occur. However, just know that should that document be needed, I would gladly go and print it. But at this point, I am going to hand this discussion back to you, sir. And what I would say is let's ask for an official motion to approve the AFR as written. That's approved. We'll go ahead and sign this, okay?
Do I have a motion to approve the AFR?
I'll make a motion to approve the AFR for 2025.
I second.
Any other discussions? All accept?
Aye.
I reject. Passes unanimously. Thank you. It's here.
Okay. I'm going to sign this and I'm going to hand this one down. Okay, so Tom, you are going to sign. You're going to sign twice. You're going to sign here and then just write your name out normally there, and then you would vote down here. So just the top part just says that it was this version was submitted to you today, and that you're acknowledging that. Yeah, at the top, yeah, it's just him.
How do you do that?
I can do that for you. Yep, 9th day of February 26th. Thank you. I would have forgotten to.
For information, all three board members signed option 1.
Thank you all. I very much appreciate it. Next, we've completed, I'm sorry, Joe.
All right, we completed special action part of our agenda. Now we'll go to old business. What do you want to take old business?
Sure. So we're going to have the board review and hopefully approve the meeting minutes from the first 2 meetings of this year. This keeps us back on pace for meeting minutes, so I appreciate that, Sherry. Thank you. The first would be from the organizational meeting, and you should have that first. I might have messed it up in one of them, so I apologize. But this would be for Tuesday, January 6th. Again, that's the organizational meeting. And then the second should be directly behind it, and that meeting date should be Monday, January 26th, 2026, and that was the annual Board of Finance meeting. I will allow the board a few minutes to review that. You sound like a choir up here with all the sniveling. Yeah. Right. Yes. I would. Okay. Any comments, edits, concerns with meeting minutes? Okay. I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the organizational meeting on January 6th and finance board meeting on January 26th.
I can't approve.
Yeah, Tom's got a second.
I'll second that. Any discussions? All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Both meetings passed unanimously.
Will you pass these down to Sharon and have her sign it for me?
If you object, I guess there is a problem, right?
And that concludes new business, sir. So back to you.
Right.
Or old business, I'm sorry.
That includes the old business. Let's, we'll move on to new business. Cody, you can take over for new business.
Okay, so the first item on our new business, really one of the more regular things we do every year. As we were talking about with the AFR, the Township Assistance Program, we have to approve the revised Township Assistance Guidelines annually, as required under state law. And so that is what this document is here before you. Obviously, it's been dated to 2026, but one of the things that we've been doing since I've been here in office is the top page of each year's revised Township Assistance Guidelines is a different color, just for sheer ease of recognition and access. And then like today, when we were going back through and Becky and I were doing version control, it was really very simple to say, okay, what color was this? What color was this? What color was this? And what color was this? And so, again, something simple, but something that wasn't really done previously. And again, makes for just very easy of access to information for record keeping. See, the biggest changes in here are really just in the back. So if you want, you can go to what would effectively be page 22. So it's going to say Appendix A, income. It's the 2026 poverty guidelines. I will have to make an edit to this page. I didn't change the dates at the top of this to 20. I changed the January 15th to the 15th, but I didn't change the actual date to 26. So my apologies there. So what we do is we use the federal poverty level, and as you know, we take 130% of the federal poverty level. So the chart as reflected is the actual federal poverty level rates for 2026. So when somebody comes in and we're looking at their income, if it's a one-person household and we're looking to verify them on their monthly income, we would take that $1,330, we would times it by 1.3, and then that would give us, the amount that we could actually, the amount that their income could be for that month. Same thing with the annual income level as well. So again, this is something that's required to be updated, but like when I came in, it had been updated in probably 5 or 6 years. So we've maintained it every year. Any questions on the poverty level? And then the reason, if anybody was interested, is that is the same level the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana uses. Since they're our major nonprofit partner, it made sense to me to have the same eligibility threshold as they do. The next page, page 23, is Appendix B. This is the these are the food items. So we don't do this very often because we have the food pantry, but one of the things that the township can do through our township assistance program is we can do food purchase orders. And what this would be is if we went to the grocery store and actually purchased food directly for our family, or we can give them, some townships give them a food voucher. This would set the maximum amount for what we could give in that instance. We don't really use this because we have the food pantry and we have the capability to provide them with food. So while we do always update this, and this is actually updated based off of the USDA SNAP benefits chart. This is their maximum allotment per month, and so we just reflect that here. But this is updated for this year, and you can see the effective date as well as the reference material for where the information was found. Do you have any questions about that? No. Okay, next page is page 24, Appendix C, Household Essentials. So these are all household items, not food. So paper goods, hygiene goods, cleaning, etc. This is updated this one's a little interesting. I couldn't actually figure out where my predecessor got the original numbers for this from. They go all the way back to when Rolly was here, Rolly Bauer, which was her predecessor. So rather than remake the wheel, I took what it was when she came into office, and then I used the consumer price index annual inflation level every year to match it to the date I took office. And then every year since, I've increased it by that year's inflation level again. So for instance, you can see here down at the bottom, it says the calculation was based on the rate last set in 2025, which was then multiplied by the rate of inflation between December 2024 and December 2025, so all of last year, which equaled 2.7%. And so again, where we really use this is actually, I referenced this already tonight. But like, for instance, when people donate those gas gift cards to us, one of the really good things about this level is that generally we can only give out one gas card per month. And it just so happens that most people who ask us for a gas gift card are one individual households. And this sort of reflects that, because if it's two $25 gift cards, I couldn't give it to them, right? It'd be $50. So this is really where I find this becomes most useful, because again, we have paper goods, we have hygiene products and all of that here available through our food pantry. So we don't really do purchase orders. We use this more as like a threshold level, like I said, for gift cards and other items like that. Any questions about how that was calculated or what it represents? Okay. Next page, probably one of our more useful pages, Appendix D, housing. So again, there's a lot of jargon up top, but really what's important here is that so townships are actually given two options on how to calculate the maximum amount they will give for rental or mortgage assistance. And that number is the same regardless, because it's based off of number of individuals in the home plus number of bedrooms in the home. So it's not based off of necessarily what the individual's rent or mortgage amount is. So that way it's kind of a standard set across the board. And again, the two options you have in determining this are one, and we do the first one, is you take the HUD fair market rent values that they produce annually for all zip codes across the country. And since Winfield Township does technically still serve two zip codes, because obviously everybody's 46307, but there are still two buildings that are zoned 46355. And somehow HUD actually still generates a fair market rent value for that. And that's crazy. I'd love to know how that's done. I'm just saying, love to know it. But basically then they say you can take an average of the fair market rent values for the zip codes in your area. So what I do is we take the 46307 fair market rent values based on number of bedrooms in a home for both zip codes and create the average, like I said. The other option that we could do that I think is probably way more difficult is actually calling around and calling different, we'll call it housing situations. So people who are renting homes, maybe people who, like there's the multifamily units right next to you, Becky, there in Palmer. We could call the people who own landlords and ask them what they charge, and then come up with our own local compiliation that way. Well, I do think there could be some merit to that. I also think that could be highly suspect, because if you only make a limited effort and you only call a couple of places and you only get maybe one or two types of living situations, how do you really know the fair market value is reflective of your area? Whereas at least with us, I hate to say we can pass the buck, but we can say we use the federal rates. So if you have an argument with them, take it up with the feds, So what that has done, last year's fair market rent values actually went down in our area. I couldn't believe it. This year they did not. They increased marginally. So this year's fair market rent value for a one-bedroom home would be, meaning the most we could pay, would be $1,025. Two-bedroom home would be $1,160. Three-bedroom home would be $1,410, and a four-bedroom home would be $1,725. Now, I think everybody in this room knows that's not going to pay for a mortgage or a rent in this area. Oftentimes what we find, given state statute, is that we hope we can pay enough that will allow the applicant to pay the remainder, or sometimes we've actually been able to reach out and work with other organizations who have maybe paid the remainder. But this does a couple of things. Number one, it ensures that we have the ability to help people all year long. We're not just spending it on just a couple of people in one or two instances. And again, it's a fair attempt at trying to make sure we return the value to as many residents as possible. So Those are the numbers there. You can see where I've included the fair market rent values as well as the link to the data if anybody is interested. Any questions on that? Okay. Appendix E, we did not have one last year, but we did have one the year before that, would be the burials. Basically what we've done in the past is you're required to reach out to the various funeral homes in your area, ask for their list of services, which they're required by federal and state law to actually keep in sort of a catalog, if you will. And then we are responsible for placing an amount, a top line amount, on what we can provide for burial assistance that is reflective of the lowest cost funeral option in our area. So that's almost always cremation. And so we have the maximum threshold that hasn't changed to $1,500 because most cremations in this area, even without the urn, cost anywhere between $1,100 and $1,400. Any questions about that? Okay, so the last page then, minus the fact that I know I have to go back in and change the dates on that one page, would be Resolution 2026-5, a resolution to approve the revised Township Assistance Guidelines for 2026. In brief, I'll just read it, but it says, whereas the Winfield Township Board serves as the legislative body for the township, whereas the Township Executive, the trustee, is required to administer township assistance pursuant to state code. And whereas IC 12-20 requires the Township Assistance Guidelines as well as the standards for both the processing of applications and issuances of determinations must be reviewed and updated annually by the Township Trustee and receive approval from the Township Board. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Board of Winfield Township, Lake County, Indiana, that Section 1, the attached copy of the Township Assistance Guidelines shall serve as the standards for the administration of township assistance in Winfield Township, Lake County, Indiana until January 31st of next year, 2027. In Section 2, that the trustee, Cody J. Reynolds, shall faithfully publish the guidelines as a single document that will be posted in a place prominently visible to the public within the township office. In Section 3, that the trustee will file a copy with the Board of Commissioners of Lake County, Indiana, as required under state law. If so agreed to by the board, this resolution would then be passed and adopted by the Township Board on this day of February 2026. At that, I will pause and answer any questions, but I will hand it back to the board president.
Do we have any questions? A motion?
I'll make a motion to accept resolution 2026-05 for the Township Assistance Guidelines for 2026.
I second.
Any other discussions? I'll accept.
Aye.
Aye. Me reject. I'll pass this unanimously with the change of that one date.
That was the bulk of tonight. The rest of this will go pretty fast. Thank you, folks. Okay, moving into the update from the Township Trustee. So the next item would be the normal monthly report there on township assistance and the food pantry. So this is year to date through the end of January. Total number of initial applications on the year was 1. We do have more than that now. At the time that January 31st came, we had 2 that had yet to be processed. So those will be reflected in next month. But as of this point, we have 1, and we partially approved it, as you can see there. In terms of food pantry usage, we've really just kept on moving, as Becky and if Barb was here, as Becky and Barb both attest. But number of visits in January of 26 was 31. So pretty much 1 a day, although higher considering we're only open 4 days a week. Total number of households served are 27. Total number of individuals helped was 94. Total number of new households out of that 31 were 11. Total number of new individuals were 36. All of those new households and those new individuals were out of township. And then total pounds of food received in January was 3,040 pounds. Total pounds of food donated was just just under 1,200 pounds. And the total monetary donations received was $104.50 from the Cross of Christ Lutheran Church. So we very, very much appreciate their continued generosity. As you turn the page there, you'll see the monthly detail report on township assistance that Becky puts together for us. So you can see there that Becky, I have a question.
Yeah.
Shows 2.
Yeah, there weren't actually 2.
Yeah, and so I'm fairly certain there's just the 1, because, yeah, so I think that's just.
Sometimes it overlaps from month to month. I'd have to see who.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to think who that would be, but it doesn't. But either way there, the one that I know for a fact is the one that you can see that has the details listed under it, because you can see where we didn't approve certain requests and we did approve others. This was a situation where an individual who we had helped in the past was needing assistance again. She had recently lost a job, and so we were able to provide some level of assistance. At the time this happened, her income was actually over our eligibility threshold. We made a one-time exception, but that's why we only paid for certain things, is because we believe that there was enough income to pay for the others. Any questions there? Okay. And then, building maintenance, couple things. 2 things, and I don't have, well, you heard Becky, you might have heard Becky one of them to me. As you know, Randy from the town does the annual public safety inspection in the building. As always, there is something that is found. This year, it's actually this emergency exit light behind me. I know the little red light is on, but the lights don't actually strobe when you press the test. So it's just a dying rechargeable battery. So I've already ordered it. It doesn't, it's like a $25 thing. So it doesn't rise to the level of board approval. Still wanted to make you aware of it. We've handled that. And then the other thing is, and I'm still waiting on the actual invoice, or quote rather, not invoice, because you guys have to approve this one. So as Jason knows, there's a fire panel upstairs, and I don't know if Jason knows this, but it traditionally only actually covered the bay and upstairs, because the town of Winfield has their own alarm system on both sides, but the one on the other side is the active one. That's why if you go through that door into their section after hours, it will go off. As you know, last year, we added those additional wireless smokes down here because it was deemed a public safety threat, and so we needed to have it. Well, now the whole panel doesn't work. And what they thought could just be like a system upgrade, turns out that it's going to have to be probably a complete replacement. I don't have the actual quote yet. The ballpark figure that was given to me was about $25,000. So it's going to be a big spend. Thankfully, we do have the money in the fire budget in the public safety budget to make this happen. But I bring this up to say, and I do wish the fire department representatives were here tonight, but Kevin texted me, so I knew he wasn't going to be able to make it. We have a lot of competing interests. However, that has to be fixed because we have people who are here 24 hours, 7 days a week. So we'll be able to wait until our next regular scheduled meeting for you all to approve it. It's not, it's not like the roof where it's like we have to hold a special meeting. But this is a must. Like, this isn't a want. This isn't a what can we figure out? How can we make this work? This is a must. So we're going to have to make that decision. Why I said that and saying that I wish the fire chief was here or somebody from the fire department was because, as we know and as is listed on the agenda, there had been talks about buying the equipment for the new for the replacement ambulance, and we'll call it new. I think all of that's going to have to be weighed against each other now. Obviously, as we've talked about before, with the incoming impacts of SB1 and other state laws, we are going to see a reduction in funding, at least in the temporary side. We believe there might be a funding fix coming in the next couple of years on this. Who knows? With this legislature, I'll believe it when I see it. But that being said, we have to really prioritize and we have to kind of triage. And so as soon as I get a quote from them, I will send it out all to you so you can see it before the next meeting. I'll send it as soon as we receive it. But that is definitely a high priority item for us to get fixed. Like I said, that's been, honestly, it's probably been out for about a month now. So we're already kind of pushing our luck. But truth be told, the opportunity Bob's from Alert Alarm didn't. And so it wasn't until then that we figured out that it wasn't, that it was the larger one. So, there's that. There's always something with this building, as you all know. Jason, you looked like you had a question while I was going through that.
I was kind of all of the components of the system or just the main panel and then how it distributes out?
Well, we will see. That's why I hesitate to give too much specifics, other than it does sound like the panel itself is going to have to get redone.
Okay.
They had asked if I wanted to have the pull down tabs put all throughout the building. I said, go ahead and give us a separate quote on that. I'm sure that's going to be exorbitantly expensive. So at the very least, we need to make sure we fix what they have now and that's brought up to code. If the board sees the other quote and decides that, you can make that decision. You're the financial body, so you guys can make that call. I just know that if replacing the board of 25,000, I'm sure putting things all throughout the building would be a higher dollar amount, Any other questions? Sherry, Tom? Okay. Those are your two building maintenance issues, monthly financial reports. Those should be the next items in here. The top 2 pages are disbursements. I can remember truthfully what date we gave you through January because of the way we met. So I just gave you from January 1 through today. So that way when we pull up next month, it'll just be, we can go from there. But in terms of disbursements, I mean, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one down, obviously that's a lot. $125,000 like the Four Seasons Fire Force, but that's their Q1 payment, so that one's pretty normal. Let's see. Next would be
What's the $649 fire? About middle.
Yeah, I see it there. You know what? I'm not sure what that one is. I can pick up for you though. I just don't have, without the detail line. I can't recall off the top of my head. Looks like a reimbursement of some kind to me, is what my mind is telling me. But I'll clarify. I'll find out and clarify for you both and all. I apologize. I have those in my head. As I think the board knows, I'm sure you saw it there. There is the courtyard hotel stay from January 15th. As you know, there are 2 competing bills on township merger or township elimination legislation going before the state legislature. I went down and testified before the state senate on behalf of 270, which is the bill we like. This is the merger bill based on performance, not the arbitrary bill based on populations and boundary lines. And so this was for that, but while I was down there, I did several things on behalf of the township, not just testifying in the bills, but meeting with other state office holders to discuss relevant issues for us. So if there's ever a question about any of that, though, I'm always happy to answer that too. Obviously, we've had some really high NIPSCO bills. For instance, if you turn to the second page, they're dated 2/4/26 is the NIPSCO bill for $659. That's the community center plus the firewall. So that's a lot, that's not a normal bill for us. But if you recall, if you look at that date, that was right there during the middle of that really deep cold that we had. So not surprising. Good news is throughout that whole period, we had no pipe freezes. We had no issues down there.
Kitchen has a problem.
It does. Oh yeah, no. So I mean, it was one of those ones where I went down there and, of course, turned the heat up a little bit throughout all of that and left the faucets dripping. But thankfully this year we've had no issues so far. So very happy about that. Yeah, otherwise disbursements, I think they're all pretty regular. Next page, stapled on that is receipts. So it'd be the third page in that little packet. You can just see the little bit of receipts we've had so far this year. So two of them are rentals, and one of them is that donation from the Lutheran Church we talked about a minute ago. Any questions on receipts? Okay, the last of the financial reports then is the next page in the packet. This is your cash balance page. So again, relatively unchanged since our last meeting. I know we have paid a few things out, but I think we only maybe have paid out a couple $1,000s worth of things since our last meeting. So cash balances still sit over 1.5 million. Next, as there is nobody here from Lakes of the Four Seasons Fire Force, we won't have a verbal report from the chief. However, you do have the monthly fire statistics report in here for January. A couple things I want to indicate. This is going to look different to you all now going forward. There were changes in state law that changed how the NARIS report needed to be reported to the state fire marshal. And so these reports have been modified to be compliant with that. But you can still tell by looking at it that overall, we had 163 calls in the month of January. 88 of them were in the town of Winfield. 22 were in Porter Township inside Lakes of the Four Seasons. Porter Township outside of Lakes of the Four Seasons. 27 of them were in Winfield Township inside the Lakes of the Four Seasons, and 6 of them were from Winfield Township outside the Lakes of the Four Seasons. Ironically, we had the exact same number of calls as Porter Township did in the month of January.
So there was 49 inside seasons?
Yes, yes.
And still 88 in the town.
Yep. And then, yeah, so basically almost double in the town what we had outside, or just in Lakes of the Four Seasons rather. And then in terms of usage, it is notable that, and I know it fluctuates, but, folks like to talk that West Porter uses less, so they should have to pay less. And I just want to point out that some months it's right there. We're still paying a lot more, so.
They did quite a bit in the township.
Huh?
They had quite a few more calls than.
Oh, well, no, West Porter, we're tied. But you're talking town? Yeah,
Town, yes.
West Porter.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the next thing, originally Kevin was going to come, we were going to know more about this ambulance. Since he's not here, I'm going to largely say we should just table this discussion until our next meeting. But I do want to bring this back around to what we were talking about a minute ago related to building maintenance and everything else. So, as the board knows, as Becky knows, as the folks watching likely know, if they watch past meetings, at our next meeting, we will likely make those inter-fund transfers to make our budget align with the contractual obligations for this year. As you know, we signed the contractual obligations after we had budgeted, so there is some misalignment. There's enough funds, we just have to recategorize them a little bit. But once we do that, at that point, then I think we'll have a better idea of how much free money we have in the budget to spend on these very necessary things, like the fire panel upstairs for security, as well as these necessary equipment upgrades and purchases for the fire department, which again, I am not trying to diminish or say are not important. They absolutely are. But I think until we have the money appropriately moved and then that invoice or that quote rather in front of us and the fire chief here to work with us on it, I don't really think we can adequately be expected to make a decision. Of course, the board has the final authority on that. If the board approved some type of action tonight, it would be allowable as long as it didn't break contracting rules. But my thought would be that, we could talk about anything regarding the possible ambulance purchase or the striker thing, but really until we know what those top line numbers look like after we've moved the money, we know what the quote looks like. And then also frankly, there is still other undetermined or unfinalized component of this discussion, which is the actual amount that the insurance is going to pay out for the damaged ambulance. It's really hard to make a decision. But I will pause to let you folks kind of talk about this or talk this out. If you have questions, I can try to answer. But I can also take questions back for you to the chief and get an answer and send it to the board via email. So I will pause and hand it back.
What's your opinion about tabling
Yeah,
until next meeting?
that's fine.
I'd agree we need to, without more information,
Right.
make an educated decision.
Okay, the board has decided we're gonna go ahead and table the decision until next meeting.
Can we get like an official motion to table and vote? Sorry.
Oh, okay, I move that we table the discussion for the ambulance replacement repair until the March 23rd meeting.
I'll second that.
Any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
You object? Okay, passes unanimously to a table. Yeah, ambulance discussions,
Thank you.
or
folks.
fire discussions until next meeting.
Excellent. So that finishes new business. So I will just round out the announcements, Sarah, and then I'll hand it back to you for any last business. The only announcement I have is that the March regular meeting will be our next actual meeting. And that will be at our normal meeting cadence. So that will be Monday, March 23rd, 2026 at 6:30 PM, right back here in this room, in this building, 10645 Randolph Street, Winfield, Indiana. But that ends the agenda as I have it, sir, so I'll hand it back to you for any last minute business before the board.
Do we have any other last minute business for the board? If not, meeting is adjourned.